Hi everyone, I'm Alex and I'm here today with Sam Clegg, who owns Highfly Ventures. Would you like to give yourself a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. My name's Sam Clegg. I run an agency called Highfly Ventures. We help people in the world of marketing, mainly in digital marketing, to help build their business, to help reach their customers, and really helping the business owners and the people behind the business as well. So helping them think about their objectives, maybe where they want to take their life as much as where they want to take the business itself, and just giving real practical useful advice, support, and consulting to help them get there.
So you've worked with plenty of startups and businesses, which is why I've approached you, because you'd be a really good person to ask this question. And this kind of has two sides to it. But what do you think the business or startup landscape now looks like long term? And sort of part of that question is, do you think that this is a great time to start a business or not?
Yeah, so I love this. I wish I'd had a couple more beers and we could get really political. About things. First and foremost, do we think that the landscape is going to change kind of going forward? Yeah, absolutely. I think it changes all of the time. And I think what we've seen even over the last kind of 5 years is this shifting mentality between people doing this whole 9 to 5 thing, really being stuck within their business. The concept of a job for life is kind of well gone anyway. That idea that somebody stays in their job for sort of 40 years. So we'd already seen that shift. But what we seem to be seeing much more of now is people doing kind of portfolio careers, doing little bits of side work. And what we've got is an infrastructure where that is possible. People are running businesses from their phone. People don't even have websites sometimes. Of course you should do, but they can run businesses through Instagram and WhatsApp. And we're really seeing this change as to the business landscape. As far as setting up a small business now, it's a fantastic opportunity. The reason being that there is a lot of uncertainty around there. And when uncertainty happens, opportunities happen. And often if you consider a big business right now almost as a big ship, like a big oil tanker, they're powerful, they know where they're going, they're set, but they're not very adept at changing. If they want to shift their business model, that's 6 months worth of speaking to their branding team, their marketing team, getting all this research. If you're a startup, if you're one person in a business or a team of 4 or 5 people, you could be a different business tomorrow. You could change your website, you could change your social media handles. It doesn't mean you necessarily should, but you are the equivalent of a small speedboat or a canoe. Yes, you're not as powerful as the bigger companies, but you can meander and move so quickly. And I think it's a magnificent time to be starting a business because you've got all the tools you need with a mobile phone or a laptop to kind of start something. And the business principles, marketing principles stay the same. Anything that somebody has learned through the business that they've been doing, through their university degree, through being in an industry, maybe someone's watching this who's unfortunately been let off, been no longer has a job almost to go back to. They've learned so many things that will still be relevant. It's just now that we've got these tools to sort of make it possible. So I think going forwards, what we're going to see in the business world is we're going to see a lot more slashes. So a lot more people who have kind of 2 jobs. Oh, I'm the marketing brand manager at, whatever company it is, / I am also setting up my own Shopify business and stuff like that. And I think we're going to see people kind of think, rather than working the 9 to 5, the conventional long hours, especially bearing in mind what's happening at the moment where people are working from home because they have to, I think going forwards, people will realize if this is the option, if this is something that I can do, if I could work an 8 from 4 on days that I want to, if I can take this project if I want to, I think they're going to get a taste for that freedom. And I think it's going to be really hard to then take that back again. I think a lot of people are going to realize the advantages. A lot of businesses are going to realize the advantages as well, potentially, of having kind of staff members who can work from anywhere. And I think we're going to see a lot more startup businesses, a lot more entrepreneurship, and a lot more side hustles, as people kind of call it. So these slash jobs where people still do something that is a formal job potentially, but also are trying things out on the side as well. So that's where I see it going probably over the next kind of 2 or 3 years. And it's going to be an interesting time. And I think those people who are able to take advantage of it are actually going to see a lot of opportunity in these times. And I would just reassure people who are maybe feeling really, really concerned as to what's going on at the moment, that there will be opportunities and it won't hopefully be as bad as they maybe fear it might be.
Brilliant. And that brings me really well actually onto the next question. So you're talking before about how small businesses, which is what this project is kind of aimed at, it's much easier to shift your business model than it is for, say, a huge corporation to. So most businesses are looking to, I did a poll on Twitter actually, I think it was last week, asking, has anyone, are you pivoting basically, or are you not pivoting as a result of this? And I think it was like 90% yes versus a 10% no. So most businesses are looking to pivot or already have done. What does it mean in your opinion to pivot, and how should a business approach doing that?
Yeah, so pivot's one of those phrases that feels like a buzz word, especially in small businesses. It's like bootstrap, pivot, MVP, these kind of terms. I think it's really important to remember what a pivot is. I think it comes from the kind of lean startup idea, the Eric Ries, the Steve Blank idea. And the analogy I've heard being used before is basketball. So if you receive a basketball, your pivot is keeping one foot firmly on the floor and changing direction with the other foot. So you are pivoting that way. And the idea, the concept of it is that you still keep your same big vision, but you change slightly in how you're going to do it. So maybe someone's business idea was to launch a pizza restaurant, and they were previously going to do it by setting up at the Quayside market or an equivalent market, for a small price, making pizzas on a Sunday to start with. However, that is no longer possible. A pivot is keeping the mind, I want to have a big pizza empire, but thinking about how to change direction in the small term. Can they list it on Just Eat? Can they start delivering to their friends? Can they do a cooking show? Could they do a video of them showing how to make the best pizza? So sometimes people get confused, I think, and call a pivot where they just change a business idea completely. That's not really a pivot. That's just a completely new business. And if people keep doing that, then they're at danger of not kind of getting through to the stage that they really need to be at. Businesses do take a long time before they start becoming profitable and stuff. And I think if people are giving up on their business idea too quickly, then they could just be kind of at stage one. To do a real pivot, I think you've got to test your market, make sure you hit a bit of a brick wall, and then just change the model slightly in order to try to get through that brick wall. So stay in the industry, stay with the bigger picture idea, but just think in the immediate future, can I just shift it slightly in order to get there? Now, people who do this well do it proactively. They kind of see an opportunity and do it proactively. The majority of us, including myself, probably do it reactively. Something like this occurs. I'm talking about the sort of current coronavirus situation, and then everybody thinks, okay, I'll do more video stuff, or I can teach online, or I can do X, I can do Y. And that's really, really good. But the people who have taken advantage of this present situation had moved into this space 4 years ago. We're holding this chat over Zoom, if I'm allowed to say. Not many people knew about Zoom 6 months ago, 4 months ago, but they were still a company. And they've been kind of like developing this. And yeah, it's now become really, really hot because of how the necessity is. So yeah, that's kind of my idea of a pivot. So keep one foot firmly rooted in your business idea and where you want to take it on the big scale, but make little changes this way and that in order to kind of overcome those little obstacles that you've got in the meantime.
Brilliant. And off the back of that, you mentioned about being reactive rather than proactive. And I think at the minute, as we were talking about earlier, many businesses are very reactive at the minute, which makes a lot of sense. And I think made a lot of sense in the short term to be reactive because it can't be ignored what's going on. This is often like a reflection in their marketing and their products and their services. How do you think that we can move away from being reactive and become much more proactive going forward?
Absolutely. So I think being proactive in business, there's a really good book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think
on wish list.
But it's really good. One of the things I took from it was a kind of window that had important, urgent, non-important and non-urgent as kind of 4 sort of quarters. And a lot of people are working in the section which is urgent and important. You've got something, it's absolutely got to be done. So you're almost working up to every deadline, just finishing off everything just in time. I think a lot of business owners can probably appreciate this. They are firefighters every single day. If you're a small business owner, you're doing things as, you know, within the last couple of seconds of being able to do it. I've got to file my tax return by this date. That's when it'll get done. I've got to, you know, send that invoice to that customer at that time. Now, what the author of that book says, and what I'm trying to do a little bit more of, is work on the things that are important, but non-urgent. And that sounds really odd when you get your concept around it, but it means giving yourself enough time. People often talk about working on the business, not in the business. If you're a freelancer or part of a small team, you wear every hat. You are the cleaner, you are the, you know, everything. You're sending the invoices, you're the accountant. It gets really hard to take the bigger picture view. But I would advise every business owner trying to work in the non-urgent, important areas, and even giving themselves time every week to just sort of sit and look at their bigger goal and just make sure that the business that they're currently running is the business that they wanted to run. I've worked with so many business owners, and opportunities have come up and their business has just meandered through, and kind of 3 years later they realize they haven't consciously kind of chosen the direction that their business has gone in. And you kind of sat with them and you realize that they're just working just as hard as they were before, and they've lost the passion for their business in a way because it's gone in a direction that they didn't see. And it's changed so small every single day that they haven't realized. But when they actually sit and look at the bigger picture, they're like, I'm doing loads of client work and I never wanted to do client work. How has this come about? It's been little bits. So if anyone watching this or listening here is a business owner or running a business, don't feel guilty about taking almost a whole morning every week just to make sure that you're kind of running things the way that you want, the business is going the right direction. Take yourself for a coffee, leave the business premises, step outside of the office, have a coffee, invite a friend, find someone else who's running a business just to ask you questions or whatever. But so frequently we feel guilty about spending our time that way because you feel, no, I should be doing some client work, or I should be working on our branding, I should be designing that new product. It's indulgent to take half a day out a week. But in my experience, the businesses that do take that time win in the long run because they're actually carving out time before they need to make sure that any opportunities that are coming on, they're already thinking about.
Fantastic. And to kind of finish off with, sort of talking about general marketing here.
Yeah.
Some businesses, not all businesses, and I'm always careful to say this, some businesses are facing more time on their hands, and so may benefit from going back to basics, which is what this is all about,
Yeah.
and revisiting their marketing strategy. And you're a marketing expert, so that's why I thought you. So I guess my kind of question would be, what kind of key principles do you think make a good marketing strategy? So this is not COVID related at all. This is like, even if it was a startup that hasn't got one already and has just thought, right, okay, let's start building one. Or what if there was a existing business that is going back to revisit it? It might be really old or outdated. What are the kind of like foundations that they should be building on?
Love it. Yeah, absolutely brilliant question. Really, really important question. Yeah. well done for asking about principles and kind of things to go back to, because one danger would be that suddenly people have time on their hand, so they go crazy on Twitter or crazy on Facebook for the next 3 weeks or whatever, start doing something that then just drops away anyway, because then they're back to running their business. But if you focus on the principles, you focus on what makes a good marketing strategy, you can then make that achievable over time. Because one of the things that we speak with from a marketing consultant point of view with all of our clients is, we'd rather see them do something well and consistently than go hell for leather on everything and then kind of die off it and stuff like that. If you do the basics well, you will be better than 95% of other companies out there. Honestly, you will. And I think often people look at marketing and look for a silver bullet for this one strategy, this one hashtag's going to make me win on Instagram. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So if people are wanting that, they're not going to get it. But if they do something consistently and well over time from a strategic point of view, they are going to win. It's all about compound interest in marketing as well. So what I'd suggest, going back to basics, the only thing a company needs, and the only thing a company needs, is customers. Doesn't necessarily need a very good product. Many companies still make a lot of money. If you've got customers who are willing to pay the price, then you have a company. Honestly, that's all the thing you need. It works for startups as well. If you've got customers, if you've got eyeballs, if you've got interest in what you're doing, you've got a company, you've got potential, you can then kind of go from it. From the marketing point of view, everything has to start with the customer. Everything. I know you'll be speaking to other people about personas, but it's really, really important to fall in love with your target customer, to know them inside your head, to actively know it. Amazon leave a chair empty at their board meetings when they're sat around, and it represents their customer. They've got the empty chair, so whenever they're making their decisions, it just reminds them that the customer is there, and that's at the forefront. They deserve a seat on their board, and every company's got to do that. But how does that look practically? That's an easy thing to say, but what do you actually have to do? So you need to find your target customer. If they're you, which some people set up businesses almost to help them, you know, the equivalent of themselves. If they're a 25-year-old man, maybe they're setting up a business that helps sort of their friends. So they've maybe got a bit of an advantage, but sometimes that means that you make assumptions. What's best is to almost try to find a focus group, to try to find as many of these people in real life as possible. And the type of things you need to be finding out about them is what their real problems are, how your service can help those problems. But you want to be learning how they talk, where they hang out, what sort of things they read, who are their gurus, who do they follow on social media, where do they find their information from. Now you can have just a general conversation with somebody for about 30 minutes and probably get a lot of this information. Who are you following? What stories do you like, you know, listening to? Where do you get your info? What blogs do you follow? Are you going to any conferences, you know, over the next couple of months? Because what you need to do from a marketing perspective is map out very specifically all of this information about somebody, because it's going to help you create what's known as a marketing message, which is how you sell the benefits to the individual. So you don't sell features, you sell benefits. How are you going to help them? How are you going to save them time? Does your product make a time saving for them? Is it you know, going to make them look a certain way? You sell the benefit to them and you position it that way. You then have to think about your marketing medium. So the medium that you're going to put that message out. The marketing message should never change. If you think about an advert for Coca-Cola, whether it's a big board that's on the side of a motorway, or if it's a TV show where it's got like a proper TV advert, or it's a social media advert, usually the message is the same. It's all about choosing happiness. It's all about fun. It's all about that smile. Those type of things. It's about catching up with friends. How Coca-Cola have managed to personify friendship is amazing. But that's what they're selling. They're not selling, can I say this? They're not selling teeth cavities and all the other brilliant things that come from drinking too much Coca-Cola. What they're actually selling is that idea of friendship and togetherness. And you've got to get your marketing message down, and you'll only get that from talking to your customers, finding out what they care about and finding what the advantage is. And then when you've got that marketing message, and you should be able to write it, some people call it a value proposition, some people call it a slogan, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. But it's got to be something that almost would differentiate you from someone else. What are you benefiting this individual? Then get that nailed, show that to the people who are your target audience, make sure they buy into it, it suits, it fits. That's what you do better than all your competitors. You then think about marketing medium. Marketing medium is the platform that you put that message out on. Is that Facebook? It might be. Is it Twitter? It might be. Is it LinkedIn? Might be. What I advise people do is when the world is zigging, you've got to zag. Usually if something is popular, it's also quite expensive. We've seen the shift from buying advertising on social media used to be really cheap. Pay-per-click advertising used to be really cheap, like on Google search. Now it's getting more expensive because more people are doing it. I don't know about your Instagram feed, but loads of mine sponsored ads right now. Everything feels sponsored, sponsored, sponsored. It feels very clustered, and it's quite expensive, some of the campaigns that we're running. There's still opportunities there, but what you've got to remember is when you sat opposite your customer, you ask them all of those questions to find out who they follow, what books they read, what movies they read, what activities they do outside of work. We've had some of the best results in marketing strategy by putting posters up in local halls where people do Pilates, because we knew that our target customer for certain products were sort of a yummy mummy demographic, rather than trying to target them with the millions of other people on Facebook where it's getting so expensive. We realized that they spend loads of their time in coffee shops and in Pilates places. We could get a poster up on that wall for £20, and it was a beautiful poster, and it got us so much business. And I always get a bit sad when somebody comes to me and says, I need a marketing campaign and I've got to be on Facebook. I just want to kind of say, let's take a step back. No one wants to be on Facebook. It might be the correct place to be. It might be. It absolutely might be. But let's take a step back. What do you actually want? Do you want more customers? Do you want more this? Do you want more that? And marketing becomes really simple when you boil that down. Everyone tries to make it complicated. One of the things we get asked most is, well, how much should we pay for our marketing? How much is it worth? What's a good cost per click on Facebook? When you take it back, when you realize that the customer is the person that you need, you work out how much a customer is worth to you, something called a customer lifetime value, or a cost per sale for that customer if you're in the product business. Say you know that every customer buys something that means a profit margin for you of £50. You know that you can spend up to £50 getting that individual. Because it would be if I came to you right now and offered you a £50 note as my custom, you would be happy to give me 45 quid in return. You're still making £5. So some businesses have a higher version of that. So don't get worried about whether or not your £1 cost per click is good or not. Think about how much the customer is worth to you. If you're selling mansions, that's going to be really good value. And that's a really big takeaway for people. So don't get confused about how much cost is for anyone else. It only matters to you. And then what I advise people do is just try the different marketing mediums. As soon as they know that a customer is worth £50 to them, how many customers does a £50 poster get you? How many customers does a £50 magazine advert in a magazine that your target audience reads? How much does £50 on an Instagram influencer, a micro influencer, 3,000 followers within your target industry? How much does that bring back? And you can do this really easily on online, but you can also do it with posters. If you give people the little codes to quote on the poster, so if you get them to quote a certain code, if you've ever seen an advert in a magazine or on TV, it sometimes says, put TV5 to get a discount from this product. It's a way of tracking how effective different adverts is. So really long answer, and I speak really quickly, which isn't helpful, but my takeaways are: get your marketing message right first. Fall in love with your target customer. I know it sounds crazy. If they're you, make sure you're not making any assumptions. Find other people as well. Get your marketing message down and then test. Just put out a little bit of your budget across as many different marketing mediums as possible and see how much you manage to get from this. This is how you can be proactive rather than reactive. You've tried everything at a base level. I love it when people come to me and say, Bing advertising doesn't work. And I'm like, it has for some of our clients. You know what I mean? You can only say that kind of thing from testing. And it's made my job both much easier and much harder that I no longer have to go into meetings and tell them this is the exact advert, this is exactly what we're putting in a magazine, and this is why. We're able to now go into those conversations and say, we'll get your message right, and then we'll test getting it out there in all these different ways. And I can guarantee that if people do this correctly and do this over time, then they're going to find little areas where they're able to get so many customers that maybe other people are overlooking. Be really, really wary about just listening to the advice of everyone, because if everyone thinks that a platform's the right platform to be on, chances are it's quite busy. And there are so many other opportunities out there as well.
Thank you for that. That was brilliant. I'm gonna, after we've recorded this, I'm gonna go back and literally write down everything you just said.
I'm so sorry that I just speak too quickly.
No, because that I'm definitely gonna use that. That was brilliant. Yeah, no, and I hope that was incredibly useful for everyone watching as well. And it's interesting actually, because even though that was my last question, just going to throw in a sort of personal thing here. I'm reading a book, and I'm sure that you've read this before or heard of it at least. Start With Why.
Yes.
So I'm like a quarter way through that at the minute, and that definitely sounded a lot like what you were just talking about sort of selling that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think it's like the follow-on version, but yeah, no, it's so important. But thinking about that from a customer perspective as well.
And it's so interesting when he talks about how other businesses, how for example, like Microsoft and Apple. So like Apple's computers, I mean, I'm using a MacBook right now. I'm an Apple girl, have an iPhone, wouldn't ever touch a PC. It's a psychological thing, but it's because the fact that Apple have started with their why, and they sell on why they produce these products. So based off of we want to be innovative and we want to be ahead of the curve, and we're for this specific demographic, whereas Microsoft never really did that, even though their computers are no less good, that's not English, than Apple's are, but that's why Apple's more successful. So anyway, that was just a random thing I wanted to throw in there because that was really interesting.
Great example from Apple as well. I think when you're thinking about selling benefits rather than features, sometimes that takes a bit of time to get your head around. But I think it was Steve Jobs who kind of gave such a good example of that when they launched the iPod, which was the music MP3 player. Everyone else at the time was kind of going on about gigabytes worth of memory, different hard drives, different computer bits. He just said 1,000 songs in your pocket, and that was that's the benefit. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Everyone who is their target demographic understand that much more than 4 gigabytes of memory. You know what I mean? So it's about putting your message, what do you actually give to your customer? Because chances are it isn't the product or the service that you think, it's the benefit that comes from it.
Exactly. And I'd recommend to anyone who's watching to read that book because it is brilliant and it really sums up what you say as well. Thank you so much for joining me. That was absolutely brilliant, really interesting. I hope that was interesting to everyone watching.
You're more than welcome, and thank you for having me on.